Obsidian, the developers of Fallout New Vegas and The Outer Worlds, recently released Avowed. This is their new title set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, and it's clearly inspired from the Elder Scrolls. You can clearly tell from the gameplay and a little bit about the story and how the quests are designed. I thought today would be a nice day to sit around the campfire and just talk a little bit about Avowed and how we could impact the Elder Scrolls 6. Now before I start, I received a free copy of this product from Keymailer provided I make a video about it, so here we are. I thought instead of making a typical review, why not just take what I learned from playing Avowed and see how we could impact the launch of the Elder Scrolls 6. Now what could Bethesda learn from this? The good, but mostly the bad. Because Avowed, while it is a pretty fun game, I haven't finished it myself. I'm a little bit into, like, let's say the middle point of it, almost. It is a fun game, but it is pretty flawed. The reception at launch and before was definitely not the best. First of all, it went from having this really cool, gritty, dark fantasy art style from this initial trailer that we got a few years ago to this colorful Alice in Wonderland / Mushroom Kingdom vibe, which does not really do it justice and is not really what fans ultimately wanted. I personally think it would have been a lot cooler if we had a really dark Elden Ring style, at least in the art style department, RPG from Obsidian, because Obsidian does know how to make cool RPGs. Unfortunately, they went with this more lighthearted tone, and the RPG things in the game are not necessarily up to their standards, at least in my opinion. Now, I am the clear Bethesda target demographic, so this game initially was right up my alley. I was really excited to get into it, and I really thought that it was gonna be, well, I was hoping at least that it was gonna be a masterpiece. But what we got was not bad, but it wasn't really up there. But what can Bethesda take from the launch of Avowed? Let's start with point number one, and that would be performance is not the greatest. And when you launch a game that's pretty buggy or pretty laggy, it really takes away from the quality of it when people are talking about it. This is why this is point number one in this video for me. I would say the packaging is as important as the content, so even if the game was truly amazing, having it run pretty poorly on my PC, it really takes away from the experience, and gamer standards have really risen in the past few years. Now, I have watched a bunch of reviews on Avowed and they all pretty much say the same thing, except some of them really seem like they had a hard time running the game. And Luke Stevens is one of my main reviewers that I watch, and he is the one that had the most issues, it seems like.
To put it in perspective, Avowed, by my estimation, should take you between 30 and maybe 40 hours of gameplay to finish, doing a lot of the side content stuff. I spent significantly longer than that trying to finish this game. By my account, between 12 and 15 hours extra replaying areas that I already finished, or just losing progress because of corrupted saves or busted quest lines and quest objectives that didn't trigger properly and would soft lock you, or any other number of various issues. I also ran into an issue in later game areas where I could not enter a certain zone without the game just crashing. I have not had this much trouble finishing a game due to technical issues in a very long time.
It seems that those who played on Xbox, like Maddie, didn't really have as big of a problem, but then you also got Juicehead that also said that he crashed a few times and that the frame rate per second was not that good. And in my opinion, in my experience, I have also crashed quite a bit of times, and that was mostly at the beginning of the game. Updating my drivers was a good thing, and now I'm crashing less, but it definitely did not solve the problem fully. And when it comes to the performance, like the frame rate, it's not really that great. And now I'm not gonna sit here and lie about how powerful my PC is. It's actually a pretty mid-tier PC, I would say. I have a 2080 and an i7 8700 if I remember correctly, which is definitely not the recommended specs. But if I go in the graphics settings of Avowed and I turn everything to low and I disable ray tracing and everything, and I still have DLSS on performance, the game still doesn't run at a smooth 60, which really is a big disappointment when it comes to optimization, in my opinion. I really value a very smooth frame rate, even if I have to sacrifice a lot of the graphical fidelity. Now, this has been an issue in the past few years, and it really doesn't seem like it's getting better. PC releases really freaking suck, man. And it's an even bigger problem when you decide to charge full price for a game that doesn't feel fully finished, at least in the optimization part. If I were to pay 90 Canadian dollars, because that's how much it costs for a full price game, I would be extremely disappointing. And not only that, they also have the balls to charge an extra 30 Canadian dollars for me to play the game early. So you're telling me that I have to pay extra to get a lower quality product, because this is probably something that they will fix or at least improve as the game life goes on. But if you really charge extra for a lower product, what does that say about your standards, and what does that say about your company? I'm not fully blaming Obsidian here, I'm blaming Xbox, because this was an issue as well with Indiana Jones. I personally really loved Indiana Jones. It was a really cool game, the puzzles were awesome, the story was really good, but again, I wasn't able to run it at a full 60. Granted, that game looked really good, but if you look at Avowed, the graphics are not that much better. So when it comes to optimization, if I invest a few $1,000s in a very powerful PC, it still feels like I'm not getting a better product than if I buy a $500, $600 console. And when you charge full price for a game that isn't finished, then it really pisses me off. Like, I really went off script with this, but I really wanted to like just express my disappointment when it comes to performance. Now, you might make the argument that these games are also on Game Pass and they're day one on Game Pass, and even so, it doesn't really excuse it, because you still gotta pay extra if you want to play it early. So let's stop the rant and let's get back on track. So this video, I know you clicked on it, maybe you're a little confused, but this video is what can Bethesda learn from the launch of Avowed for the Elder Scrolls 6, and that is please freaking optimize your game, Bethesda. Starfield was pretty polished when it comes to bugs, but the performance was not good, so please focus on that, because I already wasted quite a bit of video time just talking about this, just ranting about it, because it really pisses me off, because it's a good game. Avowed is not bad, but if I dedicate most of my video to the performance, then that really says something about your product. Now, number two, on a similar note, keep the same tone, be consistent when it comes to your marketing and when it comes to your franchise. So when Avowed first launched, I've mentioned previously that the first initial teaser was really gritty, really dark fantasy, and it looked awesome. It got a lot of people excited. But then they totally switched it up, gave us this really light-hearted, high fantasy vibe, and it didn't really click with people. And especially when it comes to the character designs, I don't think these are bad personally, but it's really not what I expected when I saw that initial trailer. And when it comes to the Elder Scrolls, this is a franchise that people love. They're very familiar with it. There's a lot of lore that people love, and they don't want that to be changed. So if you're gonna make a game that's, let's say, super happy, everyone is magical, and there's unicorns flying about, that's really not gonna fit in the Elder Scrolls universe, given how violent and how dark that fantasy actually is. If the shift is too large, you are gonna lose your core fan base, which is definitely what you don't wanna do. If we take, for example, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which is a game that I somewhat enjoyed, it really was a horrible Dragon Age title because of how big the shift was from Inquisition to the Veilguard. Point number three would be to take inspiration from the combat and movement. Now, say what you will about Avowed, I really freaking love the movement in this game. I am not a big fan typically of playing in first person. Elder Scrolls, it is my favorite game, Skyrim, my favorite game of all time, but if I were to play it in third person with a bunch of mods, I definitely will, and that's actually what I do. But when it comes to Avowed, the movement in that game is really awesome. When you take into consideration all the animations that they've done, the dodge mechanic in fighting as well, all the climbing mechanic as well is also really cool because you can vault over objects. You can do that in Starfield now. So hey, maybe there's hope for Elder Scrolls 6, but when it comes to Starfield, it doesn't really feel very fluid. What they did with Avowed, in my opinion, was pretty cool. It was really awesome to go around these buildings and then climbing on things and then jumping from rooftop to rooftop. So it kind of fulfills that Assassin's Creed fantasy that I've always had when it comes to playing games. So yeah, I would definitely like to see that in the Elder Scrolls 6. There is a mod for Skyrim called Sky Climb that lets you climb stuff. So maybe they could take inspiration from that. Again, that is not a very fluid mod. It does feel pretty clunky when you're playing with it, but kind of gives me hope. When it comes to the combat, Avowed has wands and the spells are pretty cool. They also have quick menus and you can have a variety of spells equipped pretty much at the same time. When it comes to Skyrim, you can have up to 2 because you have 2 heads. But then you do have the quick menu in Skyrim, but it's not as good as the one in Avowed in my opinion, because you can have multiple sections in the one in Avowed. For example, for consumables, you can click on consumables and then you select what consumable you want out of that. So it'd be nice to have a little bit more organization when it comes to the quick menus in Skyrim, and they can definitely take some inspiration from here. Having 2 loadouts easily switchable is also really cool. I really doubt that they're gonna do this for Elder Scrolls 6, and I don't necessarily ask for them to do this, but it's cool that you can do that in Avowed. So you can have 2 sets of weapons, let's say a ranged weapon and a melee weapon equipped at all times. Another cool animation, I guess, is that when I get knocked down, the game literally throws me on my ass, and it really feels like I'm getting my ass whooped. And also, you can jump diagonally. I don't know why Skyrim is so restricted. Thank God for mods such as true directional movement in that game, because I mean, if you can't even sprint and jump without mods in Skyrim. I've watched a bunch of reviews on the game, and the general consensus seems to be that the combat is good, but it's not the best it could be. And it could get better as you unlock new abilities, but in my opinion, to be completely honest, I really like simple combat. And Avowed, it would be a really cool combat system to have in the Elder Scrolls. And I definitely liked it from the beginning, even if it was just swing this weapon left and right, because that's basically what we had in Skyrim. But with all the enemy reactions when you hit them and the hit stop effect, it really felt like the weapons had some weight to them, and it felt pretty cool. Now, number 4. Now we're gonna go back in time to the time of Fallout 4, alright? The dialogue camera in Avowed is very similar to Fallout 4, and I don't know why Bethesda removed it, because Avowed shows that it's possible to have a very cinematic dialogue camera while having a silent protagonist. Avowed kinda does a mix of Fallout 4 and some Starfield inspired, with some different people joining in on the conversation, but it's not as zoomed in and as awkward as the Starfield/Oblivion camera that is very dated, and it feels so awkward. It's really a weird decision that they decided to go back on that with Starfield. Other cool dialogue additions were that you can have a dialogue history and info about the lore, because the lore of the Pillars of Eternity, Avowed is my first game in that universe, so I obviously don't know anything about it, so it's really useful. I'm not saying that Elder Scrolls should have that, but what it should definitely have is dialogue history. I feel like in RPGs with a lot of dialogue, it's really easy to just forget to listen every now and then you get tasked with choosing something pretty major and you don't remember what the conversation was about. So every now and then it's nice to just like revisit some lines, you know? Guys, I don't know, what is Housdale Kef? Like, I totally forgot. Let me Google it. There was a mod for Skyrim that actually won the official Nariva Mod Award in 2024 for quality of life, called Dialogue History. Prize of the 2024 Nariva Mod Award Quality of Life, whatever bullshit, goes to Dialogue History. Holy shit, there's a lot of dialogue in this game, and thank God that something is logging it now. That's a mod that Starfield desperately needs. Bethesda, please take some notes. And fuck you, panel of judges, you're not getting any say in this. Please, I would love to have that in the Elder Scrolls. Otherwise, please someone make like a day 1 mod or something, because it's definitely something that is needed, especially when it comes to bad writing. Because I do hope that Bethesda is gonna have some better writing in the Elder Scrolls 6, especially compared to Starfield, and especially the Starfield DLC. Because in that DLC, I was listening less than half of the time. There was so much yapping in there. Everything was so boring, and I really totally lost track of the conversation mid conversation. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the cities in Avowed. Now, the city visuals are, in my opinion, really cool, and the cities feel really big. There's a lot of buildings, and the way the cities are designed with multiple elevations, there's some verticality involved with all the climbing and everything. That's really, really cool. However, they feel dead. Actually, no, they don't feel, they are dead. The NPCs do not walk around, you can't really interact with them. Sometimes you would have this occasional scene where an NPC would be overlooking a dead body and there's like usually a guard around and they have a conversation about, oh no, this person was murdered in the streets, cold-blooded. And then they just like kneel over the body and they just chill there and they don't do anything. And then you can't even like interact with them or do anything with the body. Actually, no, sometimes you can loot the bodies, which is very messed up because the guard is right there. They're looking at you. And sometimes you just want to say, maybe I want to see more dead bodies on the floor. And you try to attack the NPCs and you can't even attack them. What the fuck? What's the whole point of having NPCs if you can't interact with them? It really feels like they are MMO NPCs because I don't know. Maddie said that at some point, but I'm not sure if it was confirmed officially, but apparently Avowed was originally developed to be a live service multiplayer game. So it was like a 4-player MMO because the NPCs do feel like MMO characters because you can't do anything with them. Sure, whenever they talk and whenever you have a quest around them, they're pretty cool, I guess. But outside of quests, like the streets are empty. There's no one in the streets. No, you cannot commit any crimes. If you are going to someone's house and you steal a bunch of stuff from their house with them watching you, they're not gonna do anything? What? In Avowed, NPCs don't have schedules. They're literally just standing around waiting to be talked to. I mean, I don't know who this guy's preaching to, but it's a very tough crowd. Everything is very gamey. Immersion is dead. It's a problem that I didn't really see happen in the Outer Worlds. Sure, NPCs weren't as interactive as, let's say, Skyrim, but Avowed really take not just a step back. They fell down the stairs and went down all the way to the basement. They went down to the basement with this. So if there's some inspiration that Bethesda could take from this is that cities are cool, but if you don't have the NPCs to support the coolness of the city, you might as well not have any cities at all, because the NPCs are what make the cities feel really cool, even though climbing around and jumping on rooftops is pretty cool too. And another issue would be performance in the city, because the whole game has performance issues, but especially when you get to cities, it really goes downhill. I was honestly kind of pleasantly surprised when I saw that you can enter the first main city seamlessly with no loading screen, but then apparently Hightown was its own little world space, and then the second city you go to also is its own world space, which is very Bethesda-like, which I guess is fine because Edgewater as well in the Outer Worlds was very was locked off compared to the outskirts. It's just limitations from this type of game, which is, in my opinion, I never really minded loading screens, but it's a weird decision to have one part of the city be blocked off but not the other when they're both really suffering from performance issues. Like at this point, you might as well just pull the Fallout New Vegas and have multiple sections of the city be their own world space and just make them like performance friendly. Having 20 FPS walking around dead cities with no NPCs really feels weird, and it really takes away a lot from the quality of your game. So now I've been yapping for quite a while now. I want to hear from you guys. So let me know what you think. Did you play Avowed? Are you planning to play Avowed? If you have Game Pass especially, let me know. It's a game that is not bad. It's just good. It's just good. That's where I would leave it. What do you say about Elder Scrolls 6? I know a bunch of you are also worried about the Elder Scrolls 6 given the quality of Starfield. I guess it's safe to say that everyone at least hopes that the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be great. So what do you think they can take from other games? Not just Avowed. Maybe this is a series that I've been thinking about making, just what Bethesda can learn from X game. And because I was sent a code from a Keymailer, I decided to start with Avowed. I don't know if it's something I would really go into. Let me know what you thought about this video, and yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already. And before we leave, I just want to give a massive thank you to my patrons on Patreon. So thank you very much for that. All the support is very, very much appreciated. And they also get to see this video early. I appreciate all of you, except the 4 Nazim lovers that I have. What's your problem? Now you got some time to click on the videos. I'm gonna let the Sparkle Avowed magic, the Mushroom Kingdom magic be appearing on the screen right here. Alright, boop, boop. Click on whatever you want and leave me alone.